Welcome one and all to our modern day mystery school where there is no mystery anymore. I'm thinking of calling these sessions UC University or maybe UC Theoversity rather than just book studies. We'll see where that goes. Keep an eye out for more on Theoversity from Adil. Our subject today is a summary of the cycle of reincarnation and post-mortem states, death as transition and release. We do just a tiny bit of housekeeping at the beginning of these lessons, so if you wish to skip ahead directly to the start of the actual reading of the book, just click on the blue timestamp which is below for you. So welcome everyone to Book Study 33 of Unfolding Consciousness by Dr. Adil. Continuing our Death is Transition series. I love this so much. It is an absolute favorite chapter. Serious, these are my favorite things. Death, because through understanding death, we can learn the meaning of life. Death is as natural as birth. It's an absolute inevitability. So real quick, last week's episode, we did After Death Communication, the Evidence. It inspired one of you to share your powerful experiences of that communication from several family members who had passed away. So I'm going to be reading that and sharing that with you at the end of today's lesson. So thank you very, very much. That's D.Anav4775, also known as It's Me Again Okay. So thank you, It's Me Again Okay. So it's true, I cherish this chapter so much, so much. I'm going to be devastated when it's over. Next week is our last one. But there's plenty more where that came from because there's over 1,000 pages here in Unfolding Consciousness. And I truly believe there is nothing more important for us to do. These are becoming very fun for me. And I love it here with you. Because listen, if we begin to understand, apply, and become these ancient teachings, we change ourselves and the world changes. The countdown is also on for Eddie to join us. He's going to be here in the middle of next month. It's like 2 weeks away. And I'm hoping to have his episode up for you here by the 23rd of July, 2023. And after that, a very dear friend, a beloved colleague of Eddie's and mine, esoteric author Tim Wyatt will be our guest here at Hortus House, and hopefully we can have some time on the air with him. He does some fantastic work with elementals, Theosophy. It's amazing. Looking forward to that. So listen, Tim is also he is writing the condensed version of Volume 3. He's written the condensed version of Volume 2 already. So he's in the mix here. And the ebooks are almost here. We are so excited, so close. We are so close. Stand by. I'm going to make an announcement that they are out. So Jonathan, that's for you and everybody else. We've needed these for a very long time now. So it's almost time. Remember, all that is Unfolding Consciousness does not originate with Eddie. He didn't come up with this. All right. These are the ancient teachings he has researched, referenced, written, explained, collected, compiled, all of it in colossal and daring, brave depth. So that's what this is, a reference manual. These Sunday book studies will always be free as they help get the ancient teachings out into the world of today where they are so desperately needed. So if you're gaining anything from these studies, anything at all, I humbly ask you, please, 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 like, comment, share, subscribe. Please. It changes the algorithm and gets these teachings out to more people. Again, this is not about me. This is not about Eddie, but it's the teachings that are the star here. These book studies are all about you. We continue through Volume 2 of Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and the intelligent powers in nature and humans. We're here in Volume 2. Each volume has a subtitle. Volume 2's subtitle is Peering Down the Microscope, Man's Internal Landscapes, Looking Within Ourselves. Man, Know Thyself. We continue through Chapter 5, Death is Transition, Time at the Door of Eternity. We're on page 96. Our yellow post-it study notes for this week are: reincarnation is a cyclical process. Everything is cyclical. And death as release and renewal. I love that so much. Death as release and renewal. Don't forget, you get 20% off the 4-volume hardback set if you wish. If you type in the book study code that only you have, well, if you're here, you have it. UC Book Study from the Shepherd Walwyn website. So let's go. A summary of the cycle of reincarnation and post-mortem after-death states. Death as transition and release. The destination of the physical body is the grave. That's true. But the spiritual body is a heavenly being, and its life is the real life. This body is like a cage, and our soul like a bird. The bird comes from heaven and enters the cage, and there it remains confined, awaiting the time for the guardian to come and open the door and say, "You are free." I love that so much. Let's do it again. The destination of the physical body is the grave. But the spiritual body is a heavenly being, and its life is the real life. This body is like a cage, and our soul like a bird. The bird comes from heaven and enters the cage, and there it remains confined, awaiting the time for the guardian to come and say, "You are free." As they open the doors there. That is Shaykh Nazim Adil Al-Haqqani. And that's the quote from him there. But Eddie is hesitant about providing a summary on a subject that is so subtle and interconnected with innumerable nuances of meaning. However, it is in the interests of providing a framework for understanding. So what follows is a schematic, which means a simplified outline of the principal phases and transitions of the cyclic journey, everything is cyclical, of consciousness that propel man from physical death through the post-mortem states towards reincarnation and final rebirth in a new body. And I know how you feel about that, but stay tuned. Listen. Eddie's presentation here is necessarily sequential, and several details have necessarily been withheld, just to make it a little simpler. The post-mortem and reincarnation processes, so nostalgically expressed in the above quote, can, however, for analytical purposes, be categorized in the following 4 broadly defined stages, phases, and transitions, all corresponding with different states of consciousness, as summarized in this table, which is table 11 from volume 2. Let me get my glasses. So looking at this, man is a 7-fold being, okay? Man in earthly life over here, then you have the physical body, the stula sharira, or the stula rupa, the body, the physical body, your body. Okay. Then the linga sharira, which is the astral body, the etheric double. Prana, the life force, the vital principle that makes things alive. For example, what's the difference between a living body and a dead body? That vivifying force, prana. Okay, so you have prana. Then you have kama, the desire principle. Kama, you are familiar with kama, probably from the Kama Sutra, right? Kama means desire. Sutra means book or manuscript or laws or rules anyway. So the Kama Sutra is the desire book. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the desire principle. That's where Kama comes from. That's why it might be familiar to some of you. And then we have the higher and lower mind there, manas, the mind principle, higher and lower mind. Buddhi, we've talked about buddhi, which is the intuition principle or the vehicle of Atma. And Atma is there, the divine self. That's your pure connection with the divine. That's the divine spark. So that's the first stage. That's your previous physical life. That's where we are at right now prior to death in this incarnation. Moving on to the second stage. So the second stage, from physical consciousness to astral consciousness. The second stage here, okay, consciousness and existence in the early, lower, after death, astral or psychic planes. So let's take a look at this one, okay? Take a look. Here we go. My little arrow. Go. So looking at this box, this gray box at the bottom here, you're going to see what is going away. So next to it, you see prana, the etheric double, the physical body. Look at this gray box, okay? Man, this is after the physical death, the chrysalis. This is being the chrysalis before the butterfly. Dying and just after. Memory dislodged from the physical brain. It's gone. The Mayave Rupa, the doppelganger, okay? Which is what people see. We talked about that with ghosts. May appear to loved ones. The lower triad disintegrates. The lower triad, again, the life principle, the etheric double, and the physical body. And the Kamarupa becomes the lowest vehicle of consciousness. So it's no longer your body that is the lowest vehicle. It is the Kamarupa, the desire body, becomes, okay, follow along, becomes the lowest vehicle in consciousness. And later, after death in Kamaloka, which he's got Hades here, Kamaloka, the place of desires, loka, location, kama, desire, location, okay, place of desires. So you have the past life is reviewed in terms of spiritual content. This is super important because what you were perceived as by others, that doesn't matter. Fame, wealth, your looks, that doesn't matter, okay? In your past life review, all that matters is your spiritual content. Look at that. So your spiritual content, that is what we're focusing on. How did you grow spiritually? It does not matter. All the other stuff, transitory, does not matter. That's really important. Okay. Deep sleep supervenes. The second death, to separate higher egoic triad, that means the Atma Buddhi Manas, to separate that from the lower personal elements, the lower mind and all the others. Gestation period, which means you're resting, to assimilate spiritual aroma of past life into the higher egoic entity. So all that you learned spiritually, how you grew, how you evolved, you get to take that with you because you're going to download that or upload that into your higher self, your highest self, and you get to take that with you on into your next incarnations. I love that. Okay, so moving into the third stage, from astral consciousness to spiritual consciousness, the emergence of the butterfly from the chrysalis. So born again in Devashan, the dwelling of the gods, or heaven, for lack of a better term. We did lots of coverage on that. If you want to go back to the previous episodes, please do. Born again in Devashan. This is a second birth and emergence here, okay? The second life review takes place in this third stage. It is psychic residue of the late personality is discarded, okay? The psychic residue of who you were on earth before you died, okay, that falls away, and that is known as the astral shell, and that is often what appears to mediums in the seance rooms, okay? The ego awakens in heaven in Devashan, which is a purely subjective dream state of no sorrow, no punishment, and unalloyed bliss. You don't even know that there is suffering and pain. It is not even on your radar at all. And time does not exist there. So how many years in earth life will it be that you're in Devashan? We don't know. It could be 1,000 years, could be 5 years, who knows? That's not important. What is important is your time in Devashan will have been earned by you, and it is absolutely unalloyed bliss. I love that. And then looking here, unfulfilled aspirations, affections, and yearning from the former earth life is revisited and worked upon. You get a chance to take what you learned and what you're longing for, what you didn't get to finish, the connections you made, not so much the romantic part, that was part of your growth, but your purpose for reincarnating into that last life. You get to take it with you and you get to go over what you learned. It's like a little school, for lack of a better term. Anyway, I'm explaining it the best I can. Okay. Then you have gradual exhaustion and oblivion prior to rebirth in a body under karmic law. All right. This is a big thing because a lot of people freak out about this. They don't want to come back, but we're eternal and life is but a day. And there's plenty of lifetimes here, other planets. Look at the galaxies, look at the cosmos. It's unending, okay? So you don't just have one and then it's forever. Eternity is a big thing. And oblivion is a big thing. It's much bigger than we can really get our heads around. So it's not just this one time. And it isn't just Earth that you come back to. I know a lot of people do, oh, it's so crazy, but stop and look at the bigger picture for a second. Listen. So the third stage is consciousness and the existence in later post-mortem spiritual planes. Third, transition to fourth stage. Okay, so the fourth stage, a new physical life and consciousness. I know it's hard to get your head around that, isn't it? It's going to be you, the you that you get to take with you, all the things that you learned in your last life and the things that you overcame, things that you're still struggling with. You get to take it all with you. And this is where karma comes in. This is really important. You have the fourth stage, new physical life and consciousness, physical plane, earth. We're putting you on earth here. Third transition, physical rebirth from the spiritual back into the physical. Okay, that's okay because you've learned, you've evolved, you are at a different level from where you were before. Atma, Buddhi, Manas, the higher and lower minds, the desire principle is in place, prana is in place, Linga Shrira is here, your etheric double, your new physical body. And there you have, man, the new personality conditioned by the skandhas. Skandhas is the collection, the residual tendencies and characteristics of all your previous lives, all of them, dictated by karma. Karma is the ultimate balance, the law of equilibrium. So everything that you caused another being to experience through thought and action, it will be balanced out by you in a physical body. It's true, and that is mind-blowing because you think, oh, it's punishment. It's not punishment. It's just if you touch the stove, your hand gets burned. How did you cause others to feel, all beings to feel, through your thoughts and your actions? You will experience it from their point of view, not only in your past life review, but in a physical body from their perspective. To me, that is both beautiful and terrifying. So, the first, second, and third transitions closely correspond to the narrative in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And in describing its contents, Carl Jung, in his commentary on the book, he mentions that it falls into three parts. The first describes the psychic happenings at the moment of death. And the second is the dream state, which supervenes or follows immediately after death. And the third concerns the onset of the birth instinct into prenatal events. To reiterate, the parents provide just the karmically conditioned psychospiritual vehicle for you, the incoming soul entity. Meaning, again, listen, your parents provided you with the karmically conditioned psychophysical vehicle, your body, and the perfect setting and conditions based on your karma. Okay? What you are supposed to experience in this present life. Again, your parents are perfect for you. I know what you're thinking. They're perfect for you. They provided you with the karmically conditioned psychophysical vehicle, your body, and the perfect conditions, the perfect setting, the perfect family based on your karma and what you're supposed to learn this lifetime. I know. In essence, within mortal man resides an immortal entity, divine mind or nous, whose pale reflection we call mind and intellect in the ordinary man. The rational but earthly or physical intellect of man is encased in clothing of matter, and that casement is all that science can uncover. That's it. As wonderful as it is, its discoveries, it's just the physical. The higher manas in man, for example, the higher ego, is that which reincarnates periodically according to karmic law, while its reflected double or shadow, the lower manas in man, the lower mind, the personal ego, our personality, changes with every new incarnation and is therefore self-conscious, but for one life period. Now, that last sentence was written down by Blavatsky in the collected writings. So, therefore, it makes eminent sense to strengthen the antakaranic connection, please, between the personal ego and the higher ego to ensure that a future incarnation would embody even more of the spiritual guidance of the latter. So you get to keep what you learned. So keep that connection. We did a whole video on that. It's beautiful. The antakarana, staying connected with your higher self and your lower self. Sometimes it gets severed completely. Stay connected. For more information on the antakarana, the episode we did, I titled it, I think it was Criminals to Geniuses. It's book study number 30, and you can go back and listen to that. It's amazing. This stuff is fantastic. It's not about me. It's about the ancient teachings. From all of this, excepting the extreme cases of criminality we have cited in these lessons, death as transition is equivalent to death as release from earthly bondage. In physical life, it is only sensible not to allow oneself to become overburdened, overweight, so as not to impose unnecessary strain on our heart and arms and legs and other bodily organs. I know there's a health thing. I was 6 stone heavier at one time. I get that. This is also the case when it comes to the discarding of material possessions that have become encumbrances. Most of all, though, it makes sense to get rid of psychological baggage. Get rid of it so your inner self is as unencumbered as possible. It's just freer. So it's not affected by the past. That is brilliant. Let's say that again. In physical life, it is sensible not to allow oneself to become overweight, so as not to impose unnecessary strain on the heart and arms and legs and other bodily organs. And it's also the case when it comes to the discarding of material possessions that have become encumbrances. Just free yourself. Just get rid of it. Most of all, though, it makes sense to shed psychological baggage so that the inner self is as unencumbered as possible. Let it go. Just let it go. Let the past go. Obesity, whether physically or psychologically, is never to be recommended, Eddie says. And death is the ending of all 3 types of bondage. First, the obvious shuffling off of this mortal coil, which brings all joys and sufferings of the world and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to an end. That's from Hamlet. Second, the loss of all personal possessions. They don't define you. Just let them go. You need what you need, and that's it. And the stripping off or the divesting of the chrysalis of the psychic cloak or vesture, which makes up our final mortal residue. Thus, when viewed from the higher vantage point of occult science, far from being a morbid or fearful affair, death is actually a sublime process. In the continuity of consciousness, we continue again when viewed from above. from the point of occult science. It's not morbid, it's not scary, it's not sad. It's a sublime process in the continuity of consciousness and life. Death most certainly signifies an ending, but what exactly is it that ends? Only the past, meaning the ending of the known. But doesn't the old, the past, the time-bound and time-worn have to end in order to completely make space for the new? Do we wear the same clothing, the same three-piece suit all of our earthly lives, from birth to death? Does it not make sense to discard and renew our three-piece mortal vesture too, the lower triad? When it becomes threadbare? It's a very good point and a great analogy, Eddie. Thank you. Too many mainstream scientists these days have allowed science to get in the way and blind their sensibilities to the subtler facts of consciousness. This happens when the lower manas, the lower mind, blocks the light from the higher mind, the higher manas, resulting in wisdom becoming suffocated by excessive intellect. Such a statement needs no proof. The evidence speaks amply for itself. It is life in quest of life in bodies that fear the grave. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. That is Khalil Gibran. Let's say that again. It is life in quest of life in bodies that fear the grave. A little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. Khalil Gibran. I love these, love these, love these, love them. Oh my God, I love these so much. I would give Unfolding Consciousness a standing ovation if I could. I would, but it's just me sitting here, so it'd be kind of silly. But I'm just grateful that you're here. Thank you. There's more of you coming in. Thank you. We're going to hit 6,000 subscribers in a minute, if we haven't already. That's a big thing because this channel has gone through a bunch of evolutions. Remember, you get 20% off this hardback set with your exclusive UC book study code. UC University code through the Shepherd Walwyn website. Type in UC book study. And everybody should have access to these ancient teachings. Please, please, please like, subscribe, comment, share if you can, because it massages these, gets them out into the world. These book studies will always be free, and you can come and revisit them as often as you like. There is nothing more important for us to do. So now, as promised from last week's episode, which is After Death Communication, the evidence, we have some powerful words coming in. These experiences from one of our lovely viewers. It is D.Anav.4775, also known as It's Me Again, okay? So It's Me Again, okay? Here is what they submitted. She writes, I certainly know that after-death contact is real. My younger brother Jesse passed away in November 2016. A few weeks later, as I lay across my bed taking a nap next to my phone on the bed, I was startled awake by it ringing. When I answered it, I heard lots of static at first. Then my brother came through. He said, hey, baby, which was his common address to me. He then went on to say, I am so sorry that it took me so long to call, but I was sleeping a lot. I was so tired. Then he said tomorrow, which was a Monday, he would be finding out his next destination. It was then, even though he was still speaking, that the static came back and I wasn't able to discern anything more of what he was saying. The line then dropped off altogether. She says, I was so thrilled about it. I knew that if there was a way for my brother to contact me, he would, and he did. It was all I needed. I leapt up from the bed, shouting to my son that Jesse had called me and repeated his statement, told them about the static, about everything. I then called his wife in Northern Carolina to share the news with her. He died in Seattle, Washington at the home of a friend. I lived in Olympia, Washington at the time. And this was the most recent occurrence of a deceased person contacting me. So this is contact after death, but not her first. She writes, my mother did not raise me, but she too came to me in a dream one night in 1976. I was married, 7 months pregnant, and at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I immediately told my then husband about my dream and all of the details, and I'm so glad that I did because about midday the next day, my brother called us to report that she had passed. She also later visited me in another dream in 1997 and revealed a series of numbers for me to use. And I thought this was a lottery thing, but it's not. She wrote them down and then she could see their significance. So it's not the lottery, but anyway, significant numbers coming through. And she's also smelled this amazingly different perfume scent mixed with a little bit of pipe tobacco several times. And that was when her deceased father was in the room. So she has a connection and being able to see and be with all of these people who have passed. This is not uncommon. She says, I asked my father for assistance in a matter, and the very first of these after-death communications happened while she was very, very young. So back in 1970, she says her maternal grandmother appeared in the window with the curtains blowing like a breeze. Though it scared her, she was relieved to see that she had a complete face because she had suffered a gunshot wound, which destroyed much of her head, which would have left only her chin and lower body. So she was complete and intact. She said nothing. The grandmother said nothing. And this young girl sat up in the bed screaming. I knew it was her. And I also knew for certain that she had loved me and that I was important to her, though I have never seen her since. She then writes, I know that death is not the end of life, but only of the body. Thank you. And I hope this helps anyone grieving and experiencing loss. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so, so much. Next week, we have the postlude, the silent door of eternity, and our last Death is Transition series. Oh, I'm going to miss this so much. I love it. It's my favorite, my absolute favorite. Death is Transition. But there's so much more. Remember, unfolding consciousness is huge, but I just really love these. I love this. And it's more fun than I ever thought I'd have talking about death, ever. I love this so much, and I love you. And I will see you next week. I am so grateful for you. Thank you for being here with me. Mwah.